Big game hunting in Utah is just around the corner, and in this video I'm going to show you what two cartridges I'm going to be using. I have a mule deer tag and I have an elk tag. Also, I'll be showing you the rifles and the specific bullet I'll be using for this season. I also want to hear from you. What cartridge and what bullet are you using this year for big game hunting? Let's first talk about what deer cartridge I'm going to be using. Now, let's be honest. It doesn't take a whole lot to kill a deer. Just make the right shot placement and you're golden. What I'm specifically looking for in a deer cartridge out west in Utah, where I could be taking a little bit longer shots, not too long, like 400 and in, I want a speedy, flat shooting cartridge. So of course, this is what I picked. I know, big surprise. Reloading Weatherby is picking a Weatherby cartridge. 257 Weatherby. When you think of flat shooting, hard hitting, well, at least in the deer cartridge realm, 257 Weatherby might sit at the top. Yeah, the 65300 is a little flatter and harder hitting, but this comes with a little less recoil, and honestly, you could get maybe a little bit more velocity. Potentially. So what rifle and bullet am I going to be using? Let me show you. The rifle of choice for me is this Weatherby Vanguard Synthetic. It is definitely on the more budget-friendly option. In fact, I think it's the cheapest 257 Weatherby rifle you can get. This was like a $600 rifle. I've loved this. I think this is officially my most consistent smallest shooting groups rifle. I have gotten smaller groups in my 300 Weatherby, but this one just seems to shoot smaller groups more consistently. Even with this really thin sporter barrel, it just stacks them in there. I narrowed down my bullet choices really with three. The hammer bullets, it was a 92 grain Hammer Hunter. The Barnes LRX, the 101 grain LRX, and the Nosler AccuBond. Let's first talk about the hammer bullets. These have definitely been the most accurate in my rifle. I get 0.3 inch groups with it. They've just been an awesome little bullet. The Barnes LRX, unfortunately, this is going to be off the chopping block first. I absolutely love the idea of this bullet. It has a pretty darn good BC for how little this bullet is. And I've been able to get screaming velocities with this, over 3,800 feet per second. But this bullet has been the pickiest, and it has shot the biggest groups in my rifle, unfortunately. The 110 AccuBond. Some people will say, bonded bullets, they just are not consistently accurate compared to like a cup and core bullet, which generally I absolutely agree. In my 257 Weatherby, it really likes this bullet. I am consistently getting half MOA or a little bit smaller, so I'm getting 0.4 to 0.5 inch groups and getting it from 3,500 to 3,600 feet per second, depending on the load that I pick. The load that I plan to hunt with this fall is a 110 AccuBond, and its velocity is 3,500 feet per second, and it is half MOA. Why am I not using the hammers when they've shot the smallest groups? Well, I sent them off to Hootie Hoo. He, in the last year, has gotten a 257 Weatherby, and he's starting to get into reloading, and he just wanted an easy button to get sub half MOA, so I said, hey, give these hammer bullets a try. So if you want to see Hootie Hoo shoot hammer bullets in his 257 Weatherby, make sure to go to his channel and bug him about it. Let's now talk elk cartridge. Now, this might be highly debated on whether you really need a real powerhouse or you just use like a 6.5 Creedmoor, shot placement and bullet construction being king and all. Well, I like to make sure to have a little added insurance, so I'm not going to be using any 6.5 millimeters this year. Now, I do have some pretty good options. I recently got this 7 WSM shooting a 168 ABLR, 0.6 inch groups at 2,900 feet per second. That's pretty good. Then I have my tried and true 300 Weatherby, and it is an absolute tack driver. I killed an elk with it last year, but You guys know there's only one I'm going to be using this year with my most recent purchase. Yeah. Here's your hint again. I know, gasp. It's a Weatherby cartridge. My elk cartridge this year is the 340 Weatherby Magnum. Been nicknamed Thor's Hammer. This thing really is an absolute powerhouse. I've been able to shoot 225 grain bullets well over 3,100 feet per second. And yes, I know, I gotta show you the rifle that is chambered in. That's really the highlight of the video. Here it is, my Weatherby Mark V Deluxe. She is pretty. Scope on it is an Athlon Aries. Just gorgeous. It does have a 26-inch barrel with the muzzle brake on it. Muzzle brake is a lifesaver. This thing kicks like a mule, even with the brake on it. Love the 54-degree bolt throw. Just an awesome gun. Has a Trigger Tech trigger. Also, it shoots pretty darn well. Let's talk bullet choice. I've narrowed it down to two. Let's first talk about the AccuBond. I just love the AccuBond. I love bonded bullets. Yeah, they're good bullets. They're very expensive though. So why did I get a 250 grain instead of like the 300 grain or the 225? Well, the only reason I got a 250 grain was because it was cheaper than the 225 grain. And I definitely wanted enough speed to make sure this bullet still opens up and does its job. So I kind of scratched the 300 grain option. And the 250 grain, I can easily get anywhere from 29 to 3,000 feet per second with it. And I'm getting sub MOA. So that's pretty awesome. The other bullet, I've gotten more accuracy out of it, is the 220 grain Hammer HHT. And this bullet is pretty awesome. I'm getting a little bit better, as I said, a little bit better accuracy than the AccuBond. And the BC is really close to what like the 225 grain Barnes TTSX. Those TTSXs are a good bullet. Unfortunately, in my gun, it just did not like it. But it does like this bullet. And so for this year, I will be using the Hammer 220 grain HHT.